Hello, everyone. We are rolling for our first race review as the JJF1 podcast, where Jonah and Jordan talk about all things related to F1. So the way that our race reviews are going to work for right now is that we're going to have our general thoughts about the race. Then we're going to go through our most surprising moment, our most entertaining moment, the best overtake, and the most impressive moment of each race throughout the season. So the first race that we are covering today is the Portuguese Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton won, Max Verstappen in second place, and Valtteri Bottas lost from pole and ended up in P3. So, Jordan, what do you think about the race? What? Tell me, what's going on?
So hello. What's up, Jonah? Hope you're doing well. Hello to our listeners, our viewers. We had a very interesting race this morning. It wasn't the most exciting race. If we're comparing it to the past two races of the season, I would say it's third on a level of excitement. It wasn't the type of race where we were at the edge of our seats, waiting for what could happen next. It was, however, though, it was very good racing. We had, kind of mini packs within the field racing each other throughout the race, and those packs didn't really, catch up to each other. So for that reason, that's why we didn't have much change within the grid. That's why somebody from P5 didn't necessarily, catch up to the P2 or to people actually to Valtteri in third. So we had good racing within those, sets of packs competing against each other. However, it wasn't the most, if you're looking for drama, if this is your first race in F1 and you wanted some drama, you want some acceleration, some excitement, this wasn't really the race to watch, but it did provide some quality racing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It wasn't the most entertaining race. However, I feel like I'm glad that you touched upon the pack, the different packs that are racing against each other, because by the way that the main feed was going, that the world feed was going, I'm pretty sure 90% of that feed was just Hamilton, Bottas, and Verstappen trying their best to fight it out because it was so close. And it really, like you said, there were different packs, and in each of those packs, it was pretty interesting, but one didn't end up catching to another. So I think in general it was an interesting race. I'm gonna go into details later about how I think this race went, but now let's talk about the biggest surprise. So the biggest surprise for you, Jordan, what was it? I want to see this.
So you might be a bit shocked by this. My biggest surprise was Carlos Sainz dropping out of the points.
Okay.
I thought after that great start we saw in the first lap, he ended up in P4 at one point. He passed Perez. I thought we were going to see a really strong race from him after the safety car. I really did. I really thought we were going to see him charge through the field, maybe enter P3, maybe enter the podium places. I was expecting more, especially because in the first lap last year, he destroyed it. He went all the way to first place and led for 6 laps. So I thought we were going to see a more impressive performance from him, but he ended up dropping to, if I remember correctly, P11 maybe.
Yeah, exactly, P11.
But he dropped to outside the points, which is, given Ferrari's pace, the race pace, especially so far this season, they've ended up in the points in each of the first 2 races. So I was pretty surprised by seeing him outside the points. I was pretty surprised by seeing him drop back, especially by how many places he dropped back. He was at one point, like I said, he was at 1.4th, and he dropped back all the way outside the points, which is crazy, crazy to think about. So it might not have been, something that was a big headline of the race, but to me, that caught me off guard.
I really didn't see that. I didn't see you go that. I didn't expect you to go that angle. I mean, I actually agree with you on that, though. Carlos Sainz qualified P5, was in P4 after passing Perez, because I think we've seen over the last few years that Perez's starts are not his strong point. but having to fall back so much is a little bit. I wouldn't say it was shocking, but it was unexpected, and I understand why you are entirely surprised by that. However, for me, I'm gonna go with two surprising moments. Okay, one of them is the surprising moment done by the Red Bull race strategy team for keeping Sergio Perez out on the track for 55 laps on one set of tires. What were they thinking? For real? I have a genuine question. What were they thinking? I think the only person in that on the entire grid today that could have been able to manage those tires for 55 laps is Sergio Perez. The fact that he didn't get a tire or that he didn't like slide into a gravel trap or something like that is entirely impressive. But I am
Right,
surprised.
and we also see he was having trouble in qualifying at turn 4. He was, having trouble getting grips at that turn, and he even went off to the side a bit at one point in qualifying, and it ruined his lap time. I believe it was in Q2 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he had a difficult time in qualifying around certain turns. And yet Red Bull's strategy team said, you know what, I have a great idea. We're going to keep him out for 5/6 of the race. And we're going to put him in on tires when he has no chance of getting a podium. And hopefully he could maybe, or potentially, get 1 point for his championship hopes on top of the 4th place points for the fastest lap. This strategy idea is very interesting from Red Bull's point. I think that Sergio Perez is the only person that could have done it. My other surprise, and this is a positive surprise, is Alpine. I think that from the previous episode that we did, I said that this track is going to be time for Alpine to show that they actually have pace in that car and good pace in that car. And I'm very impressed with Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso this weekend. I think that they did a great job.
So I actually I don't entirely agree with you on your second point, just because I saw their pace in free practice. Their pace in Ocon qualified 6th, I believe. They had a really strong showing before the race today. So for that reason, I wouldn't say I'm entirely surprised by the Alpine. Yes, it's a very positive thing. They're doing very well. It's great to see. But I'm not entirely surprised by it because I was kind of expecting it with their pace in free practice. I love your first answer. You're 100% right. He's the only one that could have managed the tires that way with his experience. And quite impressive too, because it's only in his 3rd race in a complicated Red Bull car. And
yeah,
that's it's a very it's a surprise, 100%.
Imagine going from spending 7 years in one team and expecting to go to another team 3 races in and just completely get. I feel like they forgot about him. I feel like they forgot about him on the track. They're like, oh yeah, Max might win, right? Yeah. Oh wait, we have this other driver and he hasn't pitted yet. Let's see what's gonna happen. So
Yeah, maybe Christian Horner was thinking too much about breaking ground at their engine factory, so we can do some nice overtakes with the new Red Bull engine next year. But speaking of overtakes, Jonah, we were treated to some good overtakes today. Last year, for those who don't know, it was the circuit with the most overtakes in the F1 calendar that year. I don't know how it's going to rank this year because we're going to many more tracks. But Jonah, today we were treated to some good overtakes. You tell me which one you like the most.
The one that I enjoyed the most was Lewis Hamilton passing Valtteri Bottas into turn 1 to take the lead of the race. And he never looked back from that. I was watching my main feed on TV, and at that point in the feed, it went to commercial. So I had the mini screen on top of the race, and then the commercials in the bigger screen. And I wish that I had been able to see that in full screen when it actually happened, because it was a beautiful move. besides the fact that Valtteri Bottas was trying his best to defend from it, he went a completely other route, expecting that Hamilton was going to go on the inside and defend. Instead, he went on the outside and completely made it look easy into turn one, especially after the DRS down the straight. It was really a really good pass by Lewis Hamilton.
Well, I really I agree with you. I think that's a great overtake because it was part of the action. It was part of the top three places that they were showing most of the time. However, I'm going to go outside the top three.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the two-time world champion Fernando Alonso battling Ricciardo, who had a fantastic start.
Yeah, he had a great race too.
Yeah, I voted for him for driver of the day. And I don't know if he won in the end. I haven't checked, but
Perez won.
Not surprising with his tire management, but I voted for Ricciardo. But regardless, I thought that Fernando Alonso's overtake, the two-time world champion, on the race win veteran Ricciardo in the Red Bull, I thought that his overtake on Ricciardo was pretty impressive because Ricciardo had so much momentum coming from the back of the grid. He was overtaking left, right, and center veterans like Vettel. He overtook all the rookies and Stroll, and he did a good job. And I was really impressed with his charge through field, and I was even happier seeing battles, at the back of the pack with Alonso, also because we haven't seen Alonso in 2 years, and it's good to see Alonso showing some life again. I don't think that he has much life in him left, but stay tuned for our next episode for that. But it was good to see. It was good to see also that Alpine car having some pace, like you said before. It was good to see some action by another team that's not a Silver Arrows or a Charging Bull. And that's why I enjoyed watching the back of the pack. That's why I enjoyed watching the Alpine car charge past Ricciardo. I thought that was nice to see. Battles going on there.
I mean, I'm very happy that you talked about Fernando Alonso because I'm not the biggest fan of him. So just because of that, I don't really talk about him. And I remember that move. He did do a good move. However, I also want to highlight that Ricciardo. He finished in the points, right? He finished in P10.
I believe so.
So Ricciardo drove from 16th to 10th. Impressive. Speaking of other impressive moments, Jordan, what was your impressive moment of the race?
My impressive moment, and I'm not going to say it was necessarily a moment, but I'm going to highlight an ability of a certain driver that, it kind of makes me angry at how good this driver is at doing this. But I'm going to say Max Verstappen being able to just find the slipstream every time he's in back of somebody else and then using that slipstream to overtake. It's just this skill that not a lot of drivers have, where they're just able to benefit from the situation around them. And to me, that was just seeing this driver. I'm doing all this. I'm speechless. I'm at a loss for words because he's so good.
You're talking about the safety car restart, right?
Precisely.
Where he was passing Bottas, right?
He was passing Hamilton.
Sorry, yes, he was passing Hamilton. So I remember Bottas entirely backing up the field, getting ready for the restart, and Max Verstappen was already passed or had wheels banging.
Yes.
And then he had to back up, hit the throttle as soon as they passed the checkered flag line. It was crazy how well he did that pass. It was very, very well done.
And just to dive in more into that moment, I don't know what you were thinking at that moment, Jonah, but I had some deja vu from Mugello right when they were coming out of the last turn.
I thought they were going to crash. I thought there was going to be a 10-car crash.
So I'm like, okay, Valtteri Bottas is leading the pack. he's going somewhat slower. Am I gonna see if I was waiting to see something happen at the back of the pack? I was waiting. They all came out clean. I was like, whoa, okay, this is a surprise. But just that was what I was thinking at that time.
You know what I thought was going to happen actually too was not an equivalent, but sort of the same thing of what Stroll and Norris went through last year at Portimao, where Stroll came up from the outside and hit Norris and screwed up Stroll's race. Thankfully, neither of those happened. Thankfully, we didn't have a 10-car pileup. And we didn't have another crash that screwed up our Canadian driver. However, my most impressive moment, and I'm saying impressive very sarcastically, was Kimi Räikkönen. It was very impressive that you managed to use slipstream to hit your front wing into the back wheel of Antonio Giovinazzi, your teammate, and be the only person to retire from the race. Bravo! I'm impressed by that because for someone who's supposed to be, well, who is statistically the most experienced driver on the grid, you would figure that I feel like that's a real rookie move. And he should not have done that for someone that has been in an F1 car for so long. So impressively bad. Kimi Räikkönen managing to crash his front wing and ruin his race because he didn't, I don't know, check his space as well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for somebody with the most starts out of any, I believe there's like a crazy age difference between like the youngest driver, Yuki Tsunoda, and Kimi Räikkönen. I think Räikkönen was racing in F1 when Yuki was born.
Exactly. That's what happened.
So for someone to have such experience and, you know, not be able to gauge the distance with his teammate, and on top of that, it's his teammate. Yes, agreed. Impressively bad. However, I actually was going to talk about that a little later on in the show. I guess we'll get to it right now. As my most dramatic moment, I actually thought that was the most dramatic moment of the race. I don't know about you, but because there wasn't so much that really happened, that was the moment where I stood up from my seat. I was like, oh, whoa, whoa. You know, and
I mean, most dramatic, sure. There wasn't really drama in this race. Let's be real here. If we want to talk about dramatic too, we could go back to qualifying and say that Sebastian Vettel qualified P10, where Stroll qualified P17. So I found that dramatic, as in, wow, Sebastian Vettel got into Q3. Congratulations. But that was, I guess, my most dramatic moment. I didn't really think of any major dramatic moments during the race.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, that safety car was, for me, the most dramatic moment. But yeah, back to your point, the qualifying by Aston Martin was also surprising.
It's the same thing with McLaren too.
Yeah, I saw that in Q1, Norris qualified P2 and Ricciardo was knocked out, which is crazy to think about. So, yeah, to your point about Aston Martin, I remember texting you, I believe, during the qualifying session. I was like, wow, I'm surprised that Vettel in Q3 didn't qualify higher than P10 because he picked up the slipstream from Verstappen, and on the world feed, they didn't even show his lap at the end. So
I was so disappointed that they didn't show his lap either.
Yeah, I was disappointed too, especially because he picked up the slipstream, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, you know what? He has a huge advantage down the main straight, so I thought he's definitely going to put in a lap, maybe P8, P7. It was unfortunately didn't get higher than that. But yeah, I completely agree.
With that being said, we've gone through our most impressive moment, our most dramatic moment. What was your most entertaining moment of the race?
Well, I'm gonna kind of be a tape recorder here, and I'm sorry to the viewers and listeners, but the most entertaining moment was, I would say, the safety car. Unfortunately, that's how much, how, not how much, but how minimal, the amount of excitement wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was minimal excitement, and that for me just goes to show you that that's how much minimal excitement there was. Most entertaining, maybe a close second near the end, was when they were fighting for that fastest lap of the race. For those who haven't watched the race or didn't watch till the end necessarily, at the 65th lap, I believe, 64th for Bottas, I believe, or for Verstappen. Both Verstappen and Bottas both pitted for soft tires, the soft compound tires, which are the faster tires, so that they can get the fastest lap of the race, which gives them 1 extra world championship points. That is if they finish in the top 10, but both of them were in the top 10. So that to me was the most exciting part of the race. But I would say the most exciting part would be the safety car, and especially the safety car restart.
I did not expect you to say the safety car. I enjoyed the battle for the fastest lap. Verstappen got it by the end, but then he got his lap deleted because of track limits, which, I don't know, track limits have been a major problem for Red Bull this weekend, especially in qualifying.
Yeah, as well, track limits were very weird to begin with. So if you were watching, for our listeners and viewers who are watching, I think it was an FP2 stream, Martin Brundle talked about how interesting the track limits were this weekend, because in the first sector of the race, there were 2 turns that the drivers, tended to exceed track limits. And for those 2 turns, to exceed track limits, you had to have both tires outside the white line. Could be on the curb, but outside the white line is exceeded track limits. However, in that last turn, or I believe the second to last turn, I'm not sure, but in the last sector where Verstappen exceeded track limits, the track limit was after the curb completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found it was very bizarre how the stewards decided that and decided to mix up a bit. Maybe that's just me, but I found it very bizarre.
I agree with you. I think that some of the track limits made absolutely no sense. And I was trying to go through qualifying to make sure which laps actually made sense, which laps were legal, which laps weren't. I mean, whatever. Welcome to F1.
Yeah, well,
we're going to see what happens next week in Spain. But anyways, for my most entertaining moment, I am saying entertainment very sarcastically with the shade of Schadenfreude, because my most entertaining moment was seeing Valtteri Bottas choke away a pole position and leading Lewis Hamilton to another victory. Here's why I found it entertaining. Because we heard all over the offseason that Valtteri Bottas was a different man. He had so much porridge. He was ready to go Valtteri Bottas version 4.0, toast everyone. He said even in interviews that he was going to be very selfish in his quest for a world championship. He qualifies on pole by 7 thousandths of a second, denies Lewis Hamilton his 100th pole in his career, and was leading for a very good part of the race until all of a sudden, when we end up going into the later laps, Lewis Hamilton always finds a way to get it done. And I will credit Lewis Hamilton for getting it done, because as much as we are not big fans of unpredictability, you cannot deny that Lewis Hamilton is in really a league of his own when it comes to driving Formula One cars. But Bottas was on pole, had a solid lead for the time that he was in the lead, managed to do well after the safety car restart, and still manage to finish in P3. How? I mean, he hasn't finished higher than P3 this entire season. I feel like that is entirely on him. He, in my opinion, he needs to do better. Otherwise, the Red Bulls are going to catch up. We can't have another version of Imola where he crashes again because he's racing with a Williams. And a Williams should not be racing with a Mercedes, according to Mercedes. That being said, I think that Valtteri Bottas really needs to pick it up. And because he managed to choke away another pole position, is what is my most entertaining moment of the race.
And Jonah, honestly, I'm very happy that you touched on that because I really want to go deeper. You know, we might do a further episode on this, but I really want to go deeper into the fact that you said Valtteri was 4.0 and that he was going to be very, keyword here, selfish in his quest to a world championship. And we spoke about it earlier with Verstappen's overtake. That was because Bottas was being, keyword, selfish. He wasn't, he wasn't playing it from a team's perspective as to, I'm going to go fast away, I give Hamilton some room so that we can, have, the first two places locked in our team. And, I'm still in front at the end of the day. No, he did it so we get a better delta between him and Hamilton. And that's all he was thinking about. And it's very interesting to see him be this more aggressive version of himself, but at the end of the day, have it, backfire essentially.
I agree with you, especially on the backfiring point. He's trying. He's trying, he's in his zone, but it still ends up backfiring. I don't know what's going on.
Well,
with that being said, I'm going to stop getting mad about Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to say final thoughts, Jordan, about this race and moving on to Barcelona in a week's time.
Yeah, well, look, I really like this race because I think we're going to see more fire from Max Verstappen next time out. And that's why I'm excited for Barcelona because, Barcelona it's not a necessarily identical, but it's a very similar track to the one we just saw, except for the hilly change in altitude type of circuit. One long straight. I think in Barcelona there's 2 DRS zones. This also, so it's a very similar circuit where you have the long straight, then you have the turns, and it's very similar. So I think that we're going to see a fire from Max Verstappen again. He lost round 1 Bahrain, came back round 2 in Imola. He loses round 3, the same guy he lost the first time around. I think we're going to see some fire from Max, and I'm very excited for it.
I hope that you're right because I would like some exciting racing in Barcelona for once. I think that Barcelona is one of the most boring tracks on the entire calendar. And if we get another race like the one that happened in 2016, where Max ended up winning in his Red Bull debut, it'll be some very good racing. I would like to see that same fire from Max. Those are my final thoughts. On that note, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please like our page on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. We just got an Instagram account, and we will see you for the next episode. See ya.
Bye, everyone.